Nobody tells you this directly, but at some point in your life you walk into a room and you can just feel it. People are not taking you seriously. They're polite. They nod. They smile. But something is off. Your words land differently. Your suggestions get passed over. Someone else says the same thing 5 minutes later, and the room responds. And the worst part, you can't point to anything specific. Nothing happened. Nobody was rude. But you felt it. That feeling is not paranoia. It's real. And it's telling you something important. Something about how social perception works, and why some people get taken seriously automatically, while others have to fight for every inch of it. This isn't about body language tricks, not about faking confidence. It's about the actual psychology underneath, why the gap between people who are taken seriously and people who aren't is almost never about intelligence or talent. Most people get this completely backwards. Being taken seriously is not about how you see yourself. It's about the story other people are telling about you in their heads. And that story starts forming before you even open your mouth. The moment you walk into any social situation, people start reading you. Not deliberately. Their brain is running a fast, automatic process, scanning for signals that tell them where you fit, how much weight to give you, whether you're someone worth paying attention to. This process takes seconds, sometimes less, and the signals it reads are not your resume, not your intelligence, not your track record. The signals it reads are how you carry yourself, how you respond when something unexpected happens, and, most critically, how you seem to feel about yourself. People don't take you more seriously than you take yourself. That's not a motivational line. It's just how social reading works. If you walk in already apologizing for being there, through your posture, through how quickly you agree, through how you shrink when someone pushes back, the room reads that, and it calibrates accordingly. The room is always calibrating. Here's a specific thing that quietly destroys how seriously people take you. Over-explaining. When you're not sure if you'll be believed, you add more words, more context, more justification. You explain what you think, then why you think it, then why that reason is valid, then what you'd say to someone who disagreed. You're trying to be thorough, but what the other person experiences is someone who needs to convince them. And needing to convince someone is a low-status position. It puts the other person in the role of judge. It signals that you're not sure your point can stand on its own. People who get taken seriously say less than you'd expect. They make a point and stop. They let the silence after it just sit there. They don't rush to fill it with more justification. That silence feels dangerous if you're not used to it. Your instinct is to keep talking, to make sure they understood. But the silence is doing work. It's communicating that you're not worried about whether they accept it. That calm, that lack of worry, is one of the clearest signals of someone who expects to be taken seriously. There's a cousin to over-explaining that's just as damaging. Qualifier stacking. A qualifier is when you soften a statement before you make it. This might be a bad idea, but, or I'm not sure if this is relevant, or maybe I'm wrong about this. One qualifier, used genuinely, is fine. It's honest. But people who aren't taken seriously don't use one. They stack them. 3 or 4 qualifiers before the actual point. And by the time the point arrives, it's already been buried under a pile of apologies for existing. The listener stops taking it seriously because the speaker already told them not to. This pattern comes from a real place. It comes from past experiences where saying something confident got you shut down. So you learn to protect yourself by shrinking the statement first. If you already called it a bad idea, it hurts less when someone agrees. That protection makes sense emotionally, but it costs you socially. Every qualifier you add is a small signal that says, I don't fully trust what I'm about to say, and people take that signal at face value. Now here's something that goes deeper than just how you speak. When you're challenged, when someone questions your idea, pushes back or disagrees, and you react like it's a threat, your voice tightens, you get defensive, you seem rattled. The people watching that reaction update their read of you downward. Not because the challenge was valid, just because your reaction suggested you couldn't hold steady under pressure. But when someone challenges you and you receive it like it's just information, you slow down, you think about it genuinely, you respond without urgency. The room reads that as someone who has nothing to prove. And people who have nothing to prove are usually people who've already proven it. This is why experienced people often seem so calm when they're challenged. It's not that nothing bothers them. It's that they've stopped treating a challenge to their idea as a threat to their identity. The moment you separate those two things, the idea from the self, you stop defending yourself. And when you stop looking defensive, people stop thinking there's something to be defensive about. Let's talk about something most people have backwards. Being agreeable does not make you more trusted. It makes you less. When you agree with everything, when you're always easy, always supportive, never creating friction, people stop bringing you real problems because they already know what you'll say. You'll validate whatever they came in with, and that's pleasant, but it's not useful. The people who get taken seriously are the ones whose opinion actually means something. And it only means something if it's not guaranteed. If you only ever agree, your agreement gives no information. It tells the other person nothing they didn't already assume. But when someone has a history of disagreeing, when they genuinely see it differently, when their approval isn't automatic, then when they do agree, it carries weight. It's information. This is one of the quietest ways people accidentally make themselves less credible over time. By bending every time there's pressure on the conversation, by never holding a line. The room learns slowly that this person's words are soft, that what they say today might change by tomorrow. And without anything dramatic happening, the room stops bringing them the serious conversations. Here's a very specific scenario worth sitting with. You're in a conversation. Someone says something wrong, not a matter of opinion, actually wrong, and you know it. What do most people do? They let it go, tell themselves it's not worth the conflict, or they bring it up so gently. I wonder if maybe there's another way to look at this, that the other person doesn't even register that a disagreement just happened. And here is the cost of that. The wrong thing went unchallenged. But more importantly, you sent a signal that you will not hold a line, that when it matters, you'll fold. And people catalogue these moments without knowing they're doing it. Now compare that to someone who says, still calmly, no aggression, no drama, I actually see that differently. Here's why. And then says the thing, clearly. That person just did what most people in the room were not willing to do. They said a true thing in front of people who might not like it. And that small act, honest, clear, without performance, is one of the foundational building blocks of being taken seriously. Not because they won the argument, because they showed that their perspective isn't up for sale. Your relationship with being wrong matters more than most people realize. When most people get something wrong, there's a rush to reframe it. Well, that's not exactly what I meant. The information I had at the time suggested, because admitting being simply wrong feels like handing something over. But watch what happens when someone owns a mistake directly. I got that wrong. Here's the correct version. Full stop. The room doesn't think less of them. Almost every time, the room thinks more. Because most people manage the mistake rather than own it. And managing it, the hedging, the reframing, is visible. People see it, and it creates more doubt than the mistake itself. When you own a mistake cleanly, You fix the information. But you also signal that your sense of self is not threatened by being wrong. You're tracking the truth, not tracking your image. And that matters for a very specific reason. If someone knows you'll acknowledge when you're wrong, then when you're confident, when you say, "I'm certain about this," they can actually believe you. Your certainty means something. Because your honesty about uncertainty is real, there's a pattern in how trust builds over time that most people never fully map out. Being taken seriously isn't one big moment. It's a long string of small moments. Moments where you said what you actually thought, did what you said you'd do, stayed consistent when it wasn't convenient. People keep track without knowing they're keeping track. Every time your prediction turns out to be accurate, small deposit. Every time you follow through on something you committed to, deposit. Every time you're the same person in a hard moment that you are in an easy one, deposit. Every time you change your stated opinion because someone more senior walked in the room, withdrawal. Every time you let a small commitment quietly slide, withdrawal. Over time, the account is in surplus or deficit. And that balance is what determines whether people take you seriously when it actually matters. And the thing most people miss is that the deposits that matter most aren't the big dramatic ones. They're the small ones. The Thursday email you actually sent on Thursday. The thing you said you'd look into that you actually looked into. The opinion you held in the difficult room that you held in the easy one. Small, consistent, over and over. That's what builds the kind of credibility that can't be faked. Here's where it all connects. Being taken seriously is not a performance. It's not a set of techniques you layer on top of who you already are. At its core, it's about whether there's a consistent, honest, present person there. One that other people can predict. One they can rely on to be the same thing in every room. The reason most people aren't taken seriously isn't because they're weak or untalented. It's because the version of them that shows up in one room doesn't match the version that shows up in another. Because what they say they think keeps shifting based on who's listening. Because their confidence is high when the stakes are low and disappears when it matters. People don't take you seriously because they don't know which version of you is going to show up. And trusting something you can't predict is a risk most people won't take. The people who are consistently taken seriously are consistent. Not perfect, not always right, but recognizably themselves in every situation. The same position exists in the difficult conversation that existed in the easy one. The same calm shows up under pressure that shows up when things are fine. That consistency is what turns a person into a fixed point. And fixed points are what rooms organize around. You don't become someone who is taken seriously by learning to seem more credible. You become it by actually becoming credible. The difference between seeming and being, that's the whole thing. The room can feel it. The room has always been able to feel it.